All right, so should be live. Disclaimer ahead of time. One of my neighbors is having I think it's a birthday party, and they're got a DJ. They're a little loud. There's some hooting and hollering and some microphone use that's going on. So I had to move to the actual podcast studio. So today this is a cultural entropy number 14. I think I labeled it democracy. And Stupidity, a love story. And I have AOC up there on the screen. Should give you a good indication where this is going. So I last night I was actually prepping another video, and I kind of didn't like the direction that it was going. So I decided today I was going to shift it. And you see this individual that I just showed you a brief clip of. This is Julia Mejia. She is a councilwoman in Boston. She won a seat in 2019 at large by one vote after recount, and she won again in 2021, going away. So in this story that I have linked up, that kind of caught my eye when I was doing my normie story show. It came up again yesterday, and I read it a little bit more than just a actual headline. Hopefully you didn't hear the horn. So anyway, she got into it with a Boston cop who was doing traffic control, and she basically said, I'm your worst nightmare. Made some scary growly sounds at him. Walked off after they had a little bit of a row over parking, where she identified herself as a council member. So she the cop decided that they were going to go file a report with their captain because this interaction made them uncomfortable because of her position of power over the police officer. The Boston Herald, who full disclosure, who did this actual story, they endorsed Donald Trump in 2020. They reached out to her for comment. She said she had no idea about what went on. She felt like it was unfortunate the cop didn't realize that she was joking, and that if the cop had such, I'm paraphrasing, thin skin, that the cop didn't realize that she was joking. She kind of fears for that person's station, ability to do the job. So when I read that disingenuous second part, someone, because she says in the interview that she's 5'2", under 100 pounds, and she doesn't understand how the cop would be intimidated by her. So I kind of thought that was disingenuous. I went and looked into her a little bit. So first stop on this is that Boston, and I'm bringing up the trash Wikipedia. Boston has not had a Republican mayor in almost 100 years. I think it's 98 years. I'm just showing you. You see all that blue? That's going back to 1930. I'm looking across the room, so if the mic's getting a little screwy. So here's good old Julia. Hopefully I have my audio going. I'm going to check really quick as soon as I start it, so you can get an idea of who she is.
And can you just talk to us a little bit about the racial profiling and the impact the impact, right?
There is no racial profiling. Zero.
Okay. All right. But we just, in the earlier hearing that we had, we talked about the number of the stop and frisk and the neighborhoods of Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan having the highest rate. So how you're going to tell me that there is no racial profiling?
It's in house.
So I just wanted to give you guys an idea about the person that we're dealing with here. She's pretty at one end of the spectrum. She's either ignorant or she's just stupid. If you don't know, racial profiling is illegal. You're not going to get anybody to go out and admit that there is a official stance to racially profile. It's just not going to happen. She doesn't understand how law enforcement functions. She also doesn't understand the law. She's viewing reality the way that she wants to view the reality. So the more I looked into her, in her bio, I believe I have her Twitter up here. Here's a picture of her when she was 29 working for MTV on screen for Rock the Vote. It actually took me a little bit of effort to go find this down. Find this on the internet. It's not readily available that you can just go click it in. It's not too hard to find though. this is her official, or I think this is her official Twitter. On here, it has in her bio her pronouns, including ella, which is Spanish for she. Just to give you an indication of this person. So her bio, from what I can read, she immigrated here from Dominican Republic with her mother, who was undocumented when she was 5. One of the bios that I found, there's a few of them, said that by 8 years old she was already being an activist for those people that couldn't speak English. She graduated from high school and college. She went to, I think, Mount Ida. Her degree was in communications. By 29, to repeat, she was working for MTV. And that kind of piqued my interest, because you just don't get a job at MTV. You don't get a job with a big, at the time, 2000, MTV was still kind of relatively big. You don't just get a job there without either knowing, you have to know that the job exists. You have to want to do it. You either have to be really good at your job. I hope I kind of already laid the groundwork that she's not very good at her job. Or you have to know somebody. But even if you don't know somebody, and just by merit you end up getting the position, by the time you get done working at a place like MTV at 29 years old, you're going to have access that other people don't have when it comes to entertainment and media. So by 2019, she wins the city council by a vote again, which I'm just going to go out on a limb and call bullshit on, because at that point you can make the the election go any way you want. One vote magically going one way or the other is not a very good sign, but she did run away with it in 2021, which brings us back to what happened in 2021, because I kind of, in the back of my mind, knew I'd heard of this woman before. 2021, someone was shot outside of her neighbor's house. She ran outside and immediately started live streaming the crime scene, did not render aid, did not call 911, started touching things, started throwing out the fact that she was a council member when law enforcement showed up. I don't know the full disposition behind what occurred, because it's been somewhat scrubbed from the internet. This took a little bit more effort to hunt down, to know where to go. One of the links was actually is dead now. So, this is the type of woman that was going on. There's a little bit more to the story. I was wondering at one point if Boston just allowed the PC way of saying undocumented person to serve on their city council. It said at one point that she was naturalized beforehand. I don't care. Like most of the stuff I don't care about. You do you, like, but there's an interesting side note to it. And then when I saw her video, I realized that she has no functioning idea how any of this works. Which will bring us all the way back around to our good friend AOC, because as I was talking to my co-host about this last night, it seems to me that Julia Mejia not only is unqualified to be a city council person at all, she's also essentially an actor. And the same thing with AOC, who was basically cast to become a member of the U.S. House. And the story behind AOC is basically there's a political action committee, I guess you could put it, called the Justice Democrats. They were taking people that were interested in coming in. AOC sent in a headshot. She's infamously was a bartender at the time. They saw her face, or her headshot. I was going to say facial, but that's probably inappropriate. They saw her. Hopefully, didn't hear the whistling either in the background. They saw her picture in New York where she ran. She primaried, I think the guy's name was Hawley at the time, and Hawley was the fourth most influential Democrat in the House, and she just basically walked away by a few hundred votes with the primary, and in an area that was so blue that there was not going to be an actual challenger come election day. And that's how we got an AOC, who is also extremely vacuous. So the idea behind the relationship between democracy and stupidity is you get the government that you voted for, you get the government we deserve. And how democracy, back to the idea of that pure democracy, the mob rule mentality, the tyranny of the masses. The United States was never designed to be a democracy. It is not a democracy. We can split hairs. I will call it a constitutional republic. Other people will say it was a democracy within a republic. Whatever you want to say, the elements of democracy were intentionally supposed to be limited. Even in the beginning, most voting, the suffrage or whatever you want to put it, most voting rights came from people that were landowners, and I use people specifically because certain states listed only land ownership as the primary criteria to be able to vote, as opposed to other states that had you had to be male and own land, so you could, or male, white, and own land. So there were more than one criteria. So the reason why the relationship with democracy and stupidity is if you've seen the movie Idiocracy, the dumber that you can make your masses, the more masses there are to vote, and they're just going to vote for anything that you tell them. If you tell them that there's something like what's the thing that was just said, racial profiling, they're going to believe it, even if our court system has come out and said that is illegal, right? If the times have changed, to be able to explain to someone, to make them unstupid, to make them ignorant, how the statistics behind, say, stop and frisk work, you can't have a dum-dum to do it. So the idea is, if you're going to just pick your representative off of a headshot, like in AOC's case, or you're going to pick your city councilwoman off of the fact that she worked for MTV, that's the government that you're going to get, and that's the government that you deserve. So how do we get a dumber and dumber voting group? Well, this goes back to, as I was talking to my co-host about this, we may have even been talking about it in the podcast the other day, that you lower and lower the threshold to be able to vote, both officially and unofficially. So again, if you go in to get a car wash and they said, hey, would you like to register to vote? And you're just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And they flip a switch and now you're a registered voter. Not even talking about election fraud at this point. We're just talking about the quality of the voter. They're going to be a rather low information voter, and you're going to get a low information vote that's going to be treated the same way as someone who spent a majority of their downtime trying to understand the nuances of government and politics so they can better vote for themselves and their fellow citizens. In this case, like, if you make voting so simple that someone will show up to your house or their house and pick up their ballot and even fill it out, it doesn't really matter what type of system that you run, pure democracy or not, you've lowered the value of the vote. And the stupider your masses are, the more that you can essentially, make them vote yes when you give them $1,400 of their own money back during a pandemic and a lockdown that government caused, because they're the ones that said no more go work, no more go school. So I bring this up because I don't actually believe that we need to increase the rules to voting too much. I think the main thing is go down, you'll get a voter ID card, and then go down to your polls and actually show up in person and vote. I think that would be a pretty moderate threshold for getting as much stupidity out of our quote unquote democracy as possible. But the more that you remove any threshold for voting, any obstacle to someone being able to go down, or I shouldn't even say go down, anybody to turn in a ballot, the more that you can hammer on certain things like scary black AR-15 bad, or don't you want to be able to use abortion as a prophylactic, or the decision that you made to get $300,000 in student home loans so you could be a teacher at a public school. Yeah, we're just going to wave a magic wand and make it happen, instead of understanding the nuance behind, if you print, what was the last number? I think it was like, God, I can't remember. 80% of bills in circulation were printed up during the pandemic or something, 40%, whatever. I mean, that's a big number towards understanding how inflation functions. You have a secretary of the Treasury, I think it's secretary of the Treasury, and Janet Yellen, who says that, well, she didn't think that inflation was going to work like that. I mean, you get the government that you voted for, regardless again of the election fortification, you're getting the government that you deserve at the point that you're allowing an informed vote to be equal to an uninformed vote. That is democracy. Democracy should be an abhorrent word. It should be, to any functioning person in the United States, it should be equal in weight to the left calling someone racistism or whatever they call things. I mean, the word democracy should be the equivalent of having your drink slapped out of your hand when you say it, because democracy is bad. The ability to have an individual vote be equal to another individual vote in a meritocratic system, with the United States is supposed to be, is regressive. Like, one person's vote should be equal than another person's vote because they have worked harder to make that vote have more value. And in the same context, that the worse that your politicians get, the fact that they would just openly be corrupt and intimidate a police officer, or functionally not understand how the economy works. And in the case of AOC, she's got a degree in economics and she doesn't understand how economics function. You shouldn't need a lesson on why communism fails, to understand why communism is bad, why a supply-based economy is bound to fail. So, I bring this up, and I know this is kind of shorter than usual. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on the idea of democracy, and stupidity, a love story, because I've been hearing a lot of people talk poorly about democracy, and they should, but they shouldn't be conflating it with the form of government we have in the United States. We do not have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. And even the other day, I was listening to some, I was going to cuss, some individual talk poorly about the electoral college. And electoral college is set up to not have tyranny of the masses, to not have certain certain population density cities be able to control not just their states but the will of the entire country. I mean, tyranny of the masses. So to have an entire city of dum-dums like Boston who is unable to vote a different direction and expect a different outcome because they are so low information voters that they would vote for a Julia Mejia, or the area of New York City where good old Ocasio-Cortez is representing. And it's like, if you have no desire to get this person out of office, you and me are not the same person. We no longer have a shared culture. We no longer have the ability to function within a constitutional republic. We function within a pure democracy, which is just going to have mob rule. And if you want to live in a place of mob rule, then you're going to get pitchforks and you're going to get torches when the mob decides that they need to sacrifice something on the altar, because their imaginary world is not functioning the way that they think it does. I.e. that police officers in Boston are still doing racial profiling when they do stops, because that's the only way that you can understand higher crime areas have statistically higher crime. So anyway, I hope my rant works. I'm kind of busy today, and also the fact that my neighbor has decided that it is party day and I can't blame them. So anyway, I got stuff to do. I hopefully hit the mark on what I was supposed to do. And, that's this cultural entropy number 14. I've also decided that from now, or after next week's cultural entropy, I'm going to probably be doing this more, not live, but scripted. If you've listened with me this long, thank you. Go ahead, do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, and leave me a comment, or at least downvote me and tell me how horrible of a human being I am in the comments. And otherwise, this is Cultural Entropy number 14 on the Good Lie and the Greater Good. And we're going to be podcasting tomorrow, the long form, with me and my co-host. Hope to see you there. And otherwise, don't be stupid.